Welcome back to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast. This one's going to be fun. Welcome, Isaac, and hi, Lydia.
Bridget, Lydia, thank you so much. Excited to be here for this conversation.
We're excited. We have to tell the story of how this all came about because I think we
hmm
need to give people a little bit of context. So we love using Qwoted. We're very friendly with the team members at Qwoted. We really like their product. And we were like, you know what, let's put a call out for some blog post entries and some people who can help us with a blog idea we had.
hmm
And one of the biggest things that I don't want to say come up against in our work, but one of the conversations that we have a lot with potential clients is, yeah, how does like PR support my return on investment? Like, what is it
hmm
actually going to do for me? So we were like, we're going to put together a blog post where we get some insights from a couple of different people and hear their story. So I'm actually going to read your post to us. I'll leave out any big names and then we'll go into the interview for today.
Sounds good. I mean, you can mention them by name. It's perfectly okay. So I'll be
Okay.
going. I'll be coming to the next year's conference too. So it's great.
Okay, this is fantastic. So, this is Isaac's response. Earlier this year, I had the pleasure of joining a man named Eric Triplett for his podcast, The Pond Digger. Now, I specialize in personal branding, Eric in aquascaping and pond design, like the nice ones you see for koi fish. On his show, we discussed personal branding for general contractors and had an awesome conversation. Well, within the month, he made another introduction to another professional who listened to the show and was looking for speakers for an upcoming event. Needless to say, this October, aka right now, I am getting
Literally.
flown out to speak at Atlantic Oasis, a professional conference in Denver, Colorado, in front of 100 plus high caliber contractors. This would have never happened if I didn't land the podcast interview. And where are you right now, Isaac?
Denver, Colorado, and the Raleigh Hotel. They're gracious enough to put me up in here, and this is where the majority of the conference worked. So it's been a lot of fun. Exhausting, but it's been good.
Gosh, I think it's so amazing that we accidentally booked the podcast
I
interview on the day of the
I
conference.
screwed up. I booked it. I was like, wait, I'm not going to be home, and I think it's perfect though.
It really is. It's so perfect. So, what Bridget was saying before, for us, sometimes people get confused on
Mhm.
how PR can really support the growth of an overall business. I think we're so used to seeing like Instagram, and it's like you can see the engagement or you can see the views. But for PR, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. It's
Yeah.
really like we always joke around that it's kind of like the stock market. You get yourself out there, you start getting these press features, and then it kind of compounds over time. So, in your own words, Isaac, can you kind of tell us like how you landed the podcast interview, what you guys discussed? Like,
Yeah.
thank you so much for the soundbite, but we love to hear the full story so people can really like understand, yeah, what this means for them, or maybe give them ideas of how they can start doing this themselves.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And to be honest, public relations and getting press features and podcast interviews very rarely will make you money immediately. It's not like you're running a Facebook advertisement or a Google advertisement and you can measure the click through rates and you can measure how it converts and they purchase a product or book a call. That's not really the case in terms of public relations. And so a lot of the press that you'll get will help you in a period of time, like a press release. You do not submit a press release to make money. You submit a press release to give yourself something to promote that you can send to other people. And so every single time you do land a press feature or a quote in Forbes or Entrepreneur or a newspaper or radio show that gives you something to promote to your audience, it improves your credibility, your authority in the way that they're perceiving you because they're like, wow, this guy's taking the time out of his life or this lady's taking the time out of her career to go and make appearances or get asked to make appearances. And it's really a tremendous thing that I think more entrepreneurs and business owners especially need to do in order to stand out on social media and position themselves better. And so in terms of my own experience, I've been building out my personal brand for the last, 6 years consciously. We've had our personal brand our entire life, but I really locked onto the idea that obscurity was the enemy of success in 2017. And so I built out my network on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and just started putting myself out there as I jumped from business to business to business. Well, this year was when things really started to click in terms of my main vehicle that I was building. And not to tell the entire story of my public relations firm and now consulting firm, I just put out a call to action on Facebook. And I said, I want to be on your podcast. And the guy saw it because he had some mutual connections, or I guess it got recommended to him. He made a comment, said, hey, let's get you on for a show. Come to find out, he had you know, 100,000+ subscribers on YouTube, and he was really well connected in the space. And you know, one thing led to another, and obviously, if you screw up on a podcast and you sound like an idiot, they're not going to want to invite you to a conference. So I did something right, I think. And a couple months later, here I am.
Gosh, I love that so much. Thank you for sharing this story. And I love that you touched on the networking piece because we talk a lot about how podcasts, specifically when it comes to PR, it's yes, it's good to get the placement, right? It's really good for our SEO. It's good for, association with
Hmm.
other people, maybe that are bigger thought leaders in our space. But I think the biggest piece really is networking. So you got to meet somebody, right? And they then will, in turn, if they loved how you speak, like offer you to do these other things. For you, it was that
Yeah.
speaking engagement. So I freaking love this. This is so much fun to have a conversation with somebody
Hmm.
who really gets it. And also, you get it because you experienced it. So, Bridget talks a lot about how speaking engagements specifically have to do with networking, and they don't really
Hmm.
come unless they can hear your voice. So, was there anything in particular that they said to you, or like how did they kind of invite you to this conference?
It was really I mean, the entire team in the process was seamless. It was great, but I had a call with the founder, or you know, the owner of Atlanta Gawasa, which I was totally butchering the name myself, but it's Owasa. But I had a conversation with him, and he's like, "Hey, you know, we're not going to necessarily pay you to come speak, but we're going to pay everything for you, so you don't have to worry about anything while you're here. And then I'll have my marketing director and the team handle the flights and the hotel and all that good stuff." And really, the presentation that I was to deliver was 100% up to me. And that required me to do an immense amount of research and have conversations with other professionals, because it's in the pond space, the water feature space. I'm typically consulting business owners, podcasters, authors. So to work with a bunch of guys that build koi ponds and waterfalls and, you know, fountains outside, it's like, all right, this is a little niche, but it's cool because it's a luxury industry. It's not a necessity. Like you think about HVAC or having a roof put on. You always need a roof. You need your air conditioner fixed. You don't always need a koi pond. You don't always need a waterfall. And I just had a bunch of conversations, and that helped me put together the presentation. And it was really just a one step after another, and then show up and do the speech, and then build those relationships too. And you know, deliver on exactly what you promised in your actual presentation. And that's how you get invited back for another event.
So now if we have questions about koi ponds, we should come to you.
Yeah, sure. You know, it's funny though. I, I actually had to miss out on the session about koi ponds because it was during my training. So I was like, man, otherwise I would have learned how to make some koi. But you know what's crazy is there are some people. The most expensive koi that was ever bought was $1.7 million, and it died 6 months later after the auction. I kid you not. I had a conversation last night at the bar about that.
Wow.
Interesting stuff. Yeah.
We should break that down by the day. Like that was the most expensive fish ever.
Yeah, that's 20, $30,000 a day more. That's wild.
Amazing. Amazing. That's I hope to get there someday,
We pray, we pray. One thing that you
Right.
said that we're curious about too, because the speaking space is interesting.
Hmm.
A lot of the times you might not be paid. You might not even have your room comped or your flight comped
Hmm.
or your food comped. Sometimes it's a pay to play model, right? In the speaking world as well. Was this the first time that you had things comped? Have you done this before? Was this like your first kind of
Yeah.
like speaking thing? Like what was this for you?
Yeah, you know, ironically, I mean, a couple years ago, and when I was in California early on in my career, just trying to figure out the whole business thing, what I wanted out of life, and sleeping on the floors with a bunch of California dudes. I did a small engagement in front of like 10, 15 people. I don't really count that as my first speaking engagement. I might as well have been presenting to a class. But this was the first time that I was in front of a group of high caliber people who paid to be at a conference, who were older, especially. So it's like, this is not thinking about building your personal brand and being on social media. If you've been, you know, in the pawn space for 30 or 40 years and you're 50 or 60 years old, why does that matter to you? But you can approach that from a degree of mentorship. And you know, you touch on something good. It's like a lot of times that is not paid, or you know, certain things might not be covered. But I think it's why you build out your personal brand to a high level, and you position yourself as a public figure in your industry and in your space, because you'd be much more likely to get paid for. And that's kind of my approach here. So I was perfectly okay not getting paid to actually show up. But now, in terms of my strategy, right, my personal brand master strategy, I'm going to take this recording. I'm going to use that to get landed on speaker bureaus. Like I already have some emails I have ready to send, to Eagles Talent, the Washington Speaker Bureau, and I'm just going to send this out and have this recording and see about landing Speaker Bureau placements, which would allow me to charge and get paid 5, 10, eventually, tens of thousands of dollars for public speaking. So it's really about building a portfolio and building something that you can be proud of and also give you something to promote. And that's something I was emphasizing to these pond guys. Like, you do a training about how to care for koi ponds and how to care for your fish. You could send that podcast interview to every single one of your clients as a value add. It's like there are so many different creative marketing messages and marketing strategies. You just got to look for them and then do it.
I love that there's a niche for absolutely every industry. Like, I love that
I
you're saying the
know.
pond space. It's so cool. Well, it's so cool because I think it really expands our minds of like, there really is business to be had everywhere. And if you
Yeah.
have a passion to just go for it. But when we think a lot about speaking gigs, like it's not uncommon for us, for clients or newer clients that haven't really dove into PR yet, to come to us and be like, okay, I want speaking gigs. And they don't have really any experience yet, or they haven't really put themselves out there. So I know we kind of did
Mhm.
this interview a little bit backwards, where we're like, tell us about your story of how you landed this amazing opportunity. But can you take us back to kind of the beginning of how you started your personal brand? Because it sounds like you had a very well executed strategy. And yeah, we'd love to hear. Just take us back.
Well, yeah, and what I did is I reverse engineered all of the successful people, all of my mentors. I looked at what they accomplished, and I was like, oh, they did public speaking. Oh, they wrote a book. Oh, they did this press article. They had this podcast interview. And it's interesting because earlier this year there are other personal brand professionals, and I was like, I'm going to do a deep dive into what these people did and what articles they got listed on. I saw one of them, and I was like, ASBN.com, America's Small Business Network. I filled out the form on the website, landed an interview literally within a week, and now I'm a contributor for the website. But I wouldn't have known anything about that unless I reverse engineered another person's strategy. And then when you reverse engineer enough people, you can come up with the most effective strategy. And so you create, what I called my master strategy. And I publish a video on YouTube about that. It's about 30 minutes long. And I talk about writing articles, content creation, public speaking, my book, contributor pieces, like all of that. I go into depth about it. Really impactful video. But I don't come from a business oriented background. My grandfather was a carpenter. I didn't even get a relationship with my biological father until I was already an adult. So I was raised in large part by my mom and my grandparents. And she, always worked those lower paying jobs. So I didn't have anybody in my ear saying, start a business, go sell this, go do this. And in middle school, my stepdad, mentioned doing a landscaping thing. And so I did. But it was in high school, my senior year especially, when I started to get into that whole hustle culture, I suppose you could say. And I saw some young guys who also did landscaping and had a clothing line. So I started a clothing line. And it was just this cliche hustle bro drop ship thing, but it gave me the first couple of dollars online, right? And I thought that was cool because I woke up one morning and I checked the dashboard. I'm like, $5.43. I'm like, I won't be able to buy anything with this, but this is cool. And from there I got involved in the industry of network marketing and, got out of that space to podcast management to the music industry. And every single time I made that pivot, I was still building out my personal brand, and people were latching on to me because they were supporting Isaac Mashman as this like young, ambitious entrepreneur. And then as soon as I locked onto a profession, then people really wanted to support me and start sending referrals to me and working with me and locking arms. And I realized again that obscurity was the enemy of success. People don't know you, they can't flow you, they can't work with you, they don't know how they can refer people to you, and it's just attention is a good thing.
I think that we have so much in common. I'm just cracking up because Bridget and I are also like big on being creative and just coming up with having a goal and coming up with a strategy and kind of reverse engineering what you said.
Hmm.
We're always looking at like case studies almost of our favorite content creators or entrepreneurs. And we're like, okay, like where did they do? Like, what did they do? And we teach this to our clients a lot. Like, our clients will come to us, and one of our first questions is always like, okay, who do you admire in your space? Or maybe it's like kind of like your space adjacent, your industry
Yeah.
adjacent, but like who are you looking at that you're like, oh, I kind of want a similar path as them? And then we tell them like, hey, where have they been featured? Like, what are they
Hmm.
doing? Take a look at them. And that's where we can kind of start to create the plan and move forward. But I'm
Hmm.
just curious. I don't know if you know this, but Bridget is a speaker, and that's how she knows so much about the speaking space. She tells her clients a lot that, it takes a while sometimes to get paid or whatever. And so this
Hmm.
is really cool. But I have a background in the music industry. So what did you do in the
Okay.
music industry?
I
Just
manage a
curious.
couple. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I manage a couple. Artists. I managed a rapper. One was like an R&B singer. Nothing extremely official, but it was like
Yeah.
I flew out to California. I met with the artist. We went to the studio, walked around Hollywood Boulevard. Just and it was a really cool experience. And I worked with him for a period of time. He started out as a client, and I was like, you know what, man, I love music. I absolutely love music. Always listened to music in school and just growing up. I mean, it was my outlet from my depressed, 3 days grace middle school era to my let me listen to Rick Ross and Drake in high school. But it was still something I enjoyed and I thought it would be a lot of fun. And so as soon as I got and made the decision to get involved in that industry, I was like, why don't I do a record label? But then the more I studied and the more I kind of practiced, and I was like, I'm managing this artist. I'm trying to help him land and build up his personal brand. And I would normally charge for this kind of thing. How the hell am I getting paid? And I realized that the only way that you can really make money in the music industry is one of two ways. It's you have to scale it to a very high degree to where you have millions of streams and hundreds of thousands of sales. Or the second thing is a 360 deal. And I don't want to do a 360 deal to where I'm getting a piece of the pie out of every single thing the artist makes. So I got out of the industry, but it was a really good experience because it helped cement my love for the personal branding space, because an artist, you're building their personal brand, right? Their personal image, you're handling the reputation, how they appear. And it was in 2020, which I decided to stop that. And that was right at the pandemic. And we had a concert that was scheduled, and I was going to fly out to Fort Wayne, Indiana. Had no clue how I was going to make that flight, but I was going to figure it out. And we decided to cancel that because we didn't know if COVID was going to kill everybody there, if it was like the common cold. It was those early days of the pandemic, and the artist lost his fire for music. And I realized that, hey, why don't I kind of fall into the public relations space a little bit? And that's when things really started to take off and I got really serious about my career.
This is really funny because I started in music management and then went to PR.
That's funny.
It's real.
We're not the anomalies though. It's common though.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's a specific kind of person.
Yeah, this was my exact thought too. Like I was managing this artist. We were going to like big record labels and like doing the dance with the A&R like team or whatever. And
Yeah.
then it got to a point where I was working really hard and I'm like, "Hey, I don't think I'm gonna be getting paid for a while." And she wanted to go in a different direction too. She's actually amazing. She's signed to Columbia Records. She's doing really well right now. But it's kind of funny how things worked out, and they worked out really, in my favor. But I haven't met anybody who had a similar background. So hey, Isaac, we're twins.
I'm
But
here for it.
Well, Isaac, you remind me a lot of myself. Like, kind of, you've done a little bit of everything. And what I'm
Mhm.
sensing from you is that you basically like accumulate knowledge and experience and wisdom and then
Yeah.
move that forward to whatever you're doing. So you're basically like compiling all these
Hmm.
experiences and then you're using it as you shift forward. But as someone, you've pivoted a couple times, like, music industry, landscaping, drop shipping, PR, personal branding. Like, how did you keep your message strong so that you still had that top of mind awareness so people still thought of you for whatever you were
Mm.
doing? Like, how did you strategically think through that?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I never stayed in any industry for an extended amount of time outside of public relations consulting, because I was building a public relations firm that I dissolved earlier this year officially, even though I pretty much took last year off. It was still consulting was the business model, and I committed to personal brand consulting this year and like leaned into it. And I believe where a lot of people go wrong is they don't spend enough time in one particular thing. And so what I did is, you're absolutely right. I accumulated a ton of knowledge, but I didn't stay in any industry for more than 6 months. Aside from network marketing, I had a couple different runs, but I never committed to anything. And part of that reason why I didn't commit is I never saw myself really scaling it for the long term. And I'm that long term thinker. I want to make sure that I have a plan. So by 2035, Mashman Consulting Group will have 500 consultants working for us, and we'll be the number one personal brand consultancy worldwide. I have that vision set now. And in terms of keeping the message seamless and keeping I suppose the positioning, you're talking about positioning myself as that authority in whatever that space was. I truthfully, I think operated a lot out of arrogance, but it wasn't that I was trying to be cocky. It was that I have to convince, not necessarily you on the other end of the phone. I have to convince myself that I'm working on this. And that's what I did. But what I also did is I respected everybody's time and I said, hey, if you've been following me, you know that I've been doing X, Y, and Z. I'm making another pivot. It was so annoying because I'd spend a couple months doing musical talent and being in the industry. And then I'm like, I'm dissolving this venture. And now I'm going into public relations. I'm going to launch Mashman Ventures. And I didn't even call it a public relations firm at the time. It was like this boutique, some sort of business. And that was a horrible decision on my part. But then I eventually realized it was public relations. And so I think letting people know about your transitions, about your pivots, and telling them why, people want to be educated on these things, right? So if you can tell them, hey, this is part of the reason why I decided to change the industry. It's not because I think the grass is greener on the other side, but there's actually a strategic reason why. People can learn from that and live vicariously through your journey as well, and it can help them make better decisions for themselves in their own life, and that helps you get positioned as that public figure that had a huge impact on their entire life's outcome.
So to me, what I'm hearing is like honestly authenticity, which I think is it's the biggest backbone of a personal brand at this point. It's like being authentic and also letting your audience members in. So for somebody that is listening to this, that's like, ooh, like, what if they don't think I'm legit? Or I can just like
Hmm.
hear the comments of like, what if they don't think I'm legit? What if they don't think I'm an expert if I'm always pivoting? What would you tell them, for somebody who's nervous about maybe sharing like the inside of what's going on?
Hmm. You don't have to position yourself as an expert. That's the other thing, though. You can go and be honest and say, I don't know everything, but I'm working on figuring it out. And if I don't know something, I know people who do. And that's, people don't want to follow the Rolex wearing, Lamborghini rented, fake guru online. They do want to work with the person. And you use the word authentic. I think that in my mind, if you're trying to be authentic, you're being inauthentic because you're manipulating the output. So you just need to be you and just not overthink it. Don't even think about authenticity. Just be you. Um, but people don't necessarily want to follow just experts. They want to follow people that are going somewhere. And so if you can share your vision and make it public, people want to support you every step of the way. People know that I don't have a team of 500 consultants yet, but they know that I'm working for it. They know that by 2035 I'll have that. So now they can be a part of your journey from the ground floor. And I've had some people that have followed me from 2017, 2018, and saw me go from 3 network marketing companies 4 different times, the podcast management to I don't even know what I'm doing in drop shipping to the record label and the music and then public relations and then consulting. And so they saw that. But eventually you need to do all of these things and have these experiences so you can eventually commit to that one vehicle and never change it again. Never change it again. But it'll take you going and trying a bunch of these different things. It's kind of like if you travel and you try new food, you're not going to love all the food you try, but eventually you're going to find that one dish and you're like, man, this is really good, I love this. Take the key takeaway from your trip to Italy. And I think finding and building a business is very similar.
I'm pretty sure you and Bridget are the same person. Um, we might have a similar background, but you and Bridget are the same. She always talks about this. She's like, I just want to tell people where I'm going. I always joke around that I learned something so you don't have to. And what you
Yeah.
said there, that piece of they don't want to follow people. What did you say? They want to follow people that are going somewhere. Oh,
Yeah.
I think you said something about like not following experts, but wanting to follow people that are going somewhere. And that honestly gave me the chills because I want to follow somebody that is relatable, that I can kind of see myself in them
Hmm.
and say, like, oh, okay, if they did it, I can do it too. So,
Right.
really inspiring for anyone that's listening right now that's thinking, like, I don't know if this is a good idea. Like, relatability is number one. So, speaking of that, can you tell us, like, kind of what you would recommend for somebody that is just starting a personal brand?
Yeah. And one other thing, if I could go back, I would say it's kind of similar to finding an artist who only has 10,000 listeners on Spotify, and you watch them and you continue listening to their music, and then 2 years later they have 1 million or they have 10 million, right? And they blow up. I'm that emo kid who was listening to Suicide Boys back in 2018, and they've like quadrupled in size. So it's like you have that sense of pride because you discovered something before everybody else. And it's the same thing with following your business figures. And you can always follow the gurus and follow the mentors, but you can also follow the other people who are starting out or in different aspects of their journey. And what was the question? Sorry.
No, I love this. I kind of made it very open-ended. I was like, tell us
Okay.
about personal brands, but it's
Oh yeah, where
something.
to start?
Yeah, I love that you
Okay.
said it's kind of like the 10,000 follower type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, It's so funny too. Like when you go out and somebody like hears a song at a bar or something, and you have that one friend that's like, "Oh, I was following them when they only had 1,000 followers," and it's so true. It's a sense of
Yeah,
pride of like being a raving fan because somebody is building in public, which is what Bridget says. I'm sure she had something to say about this, but building in public that relatability piece and like following somebody that's going somewhere.
right.
Gosh.
Right. Well, and starting out with your personal brand, coming to the recognition that you've had your personal brand from the moment you were born. This is a really radical, but very key piece of my philosophy. A lot of times, people think that you create a new Instagram account, you create a new website, you're creating a new personal brand. No, you're not. You're evolving it, right? You're having a marketing vehicle, an extension of your personal brand, so to speak. But your mom, your dad determined your name, where you were born, your political affiliation, the faith and the God you pray to. They determined all those characteristics that are unique to you and nurtured into you, your environment, your nature. And if you think about it from that approach, you go to school and some kids are the class clowns, some kids are the teacher's pet, some kids are the nerds, some kids are the quiet ones. These are all labels and titles and cliques and effectively representations of their personal brands. And then you go to college, you take courses, you get a degree, you create a resume. What is your resume? What is your portfolio? It is a part of your personal brand. And so now, as professionals and as people who want to, here's the key here, consciously build your personal brand and basically grab the bull by the horns and go direct it somewhere. Now you can start positioning yourself as that public figure and doing things to where other people can edify you, like going on podcasts is a form of edification. But before you even go down that road of edification and scaling it, you need to have a good brand image yourself and understand, number one, why are you trying to build your personal brand? And I believe there are three big reasons. You have money, mission, and vanity. So you want to make money, you are mission oriented, you have some sense of purpose. Then vanity, especially in the entertainment space, you just want to become famous because it feels good, right? And so understanding what that goal is and then what you're looking to get from it. So like the long-term vision of do you want to have $100 million? Do you want to have 100 million followers? And just understanding those key driving forces is really important, because then you can start creating a seamless marketing message. And so, earlier this year, I created a proprietary personal branding strategy called identity positioning. And what this is, and I wrote an 8-page paper, it's available on academia. It's called Identity Positioning, a Macroscopic View on Personal Branding. And in this paper, I talk about how a lot of times people overlook and miss out on the personal aspects. There are so many YouTubers that I follow, and I don't even know their first name. So that means that if I find another YouTuber who is in a different niche, I have no loyalty to that other YouTuber because I don't even know who they are. So I could switch. But now I want to connect with the actual person, right? And so to use the example that I gave at Atlanta Gowasa for this conference, I said, one marketing message is I build ponds. 10 out of 10, right? That's a phenomenal marketing message. I build ponds. No. But what if you said, avid fisherman and loving father, I build award-winning koi ponds you can be proud of. Now you have two pieces of connection, right? Two connection points that will establish some rapport. And then you have not just I build ponds, but you get a little bit more specific in what kind of ponds, and then something that boosts up the authority of that pond, right? Award winning. And then a feeling and an emotional punchline of pride, right? So you have a personal hook and a professional punchline. And if you can have that marketing message, so my own is addicted to coffee and standards, come into the interview with a cup of coffee, right? Which I need. This Denver elevation is getting to me. And then I help emerging and established public figures optimize and scale their personal brands. So personal hook that people can latch onto, get to know me a little bit more, and then the professional side, which is this is what I do and this is how I can serve you.
Isaac, spitting the truth today. This is fantastic. I also just wanted to say, like, you're absolutely made to speak. You are captivating. It's interesting when you talk. So
Mm,
keep it up. And like, we are Team Isaac and very excited to see
thank
where
you.
this goes, where Mashman Consulting goes in 2035. We will be on the sidelines just watching everything you're building because you are doing a great
Yeah.
job.
I look forward to speaking at an event with you guys in the future. I think that there's a lot of seamless energy here. So I like it.
I see it happening. I can't wait to be at the bar and be bragging that person that's like, "Oh, we knew Isaac when he was at this many followers. Look at him now."
Yeah. Oh, we drink espresso martinis with him a decade ago, like
Yeah. So,
no.
we're so grateful that you came on the podcast today. Honestly, we were hanging off of every word you said, so thank you.
Of course. I mean, I appreciate the invitation, and I think it's just such an important subject, and in the public relations space, especially, I know that that's a big part of what you guys do. And you hinted earlier about like even paying to speak. And it's like if you're a legitimate public figure, if you're somebody who has legitimate credibility and authority, you should be the one getting paid. You should never pay. So it's like pay for the Forbes feature, pay for the entrepreneur feature, pay for the upcharge newswire. And if somebody says that they can grow your Instagram account by 10,000 followers overnight, it's a Chinese bot farm. If they say they can get you a Google Knowledge panel overnight, or get you verified, or get you a Wikipedia page, all of that's BS. You can't do it. Those things are earned. Somebody says they can get you in a bunch of these different news places, run the other way, right? And so I was able to land all of these high quality Forbes features. Like, for example, it took me 6 years to land my first Forbes feature. Excuse me. I landed that this year. I landed an entrepreneur quote. Then I landed a quote in a nationally syndicated newspaper. So that's cool. And then before my flight 2 days ago, I was on a radio show. So it's like it will take time for your personal brand to create momentum. But the thing about building your personal brand is it compounds. So it might take you 5 years to get some degree of momentum. But now that the ball's rolling, I can do 1,000 things with what I've already done and build up off of that and take the speaking engagement, get more of them, continue scaling to where this could become a daily part of my lifestyle, which I think is something I looked at my mentors early on, in the network marketing space. And it's like, they're catching more flights than my family has ever taken in their entire life in 1 month. And I think that's fun. I think business should be fun. And that's what I'm excited about.
I love this. And, it's the ripple effect. It
Mhm.
can take time, but once you start the ball rolling, this is why we recommend getting the ball started right now. Like, just start, put one foot in front of the other. It's going to
Mhm.
compound. Be patient, build your relationships, like make the connections, and remember that all of this is building towards
Yeah.
your success and toward your future and in the direction that you want to go. So, love your message, love what you're up to, Isaac. Where can people find out more about you and the consulting company so they can
Yeah.
keep you on their radar?
Thank you again for the invitation, both of you. And you can find me literally everywhere at Isaac Mashman. Can't be in the personal branding space if my personal brand doesn't look good, right? So you could go to Google, type in my name. For Mashman Consulting Group, you can go to mashmancg.com, and we have this really cool AI chat bot named KPI. You could have a conversation with him, and if you're interested in working with us in a professional capacity, have a conversation with KPI. We'll send you a link to our overview presentation, which is exclusive on our YouTube channel, and you'd be good to go.
Thank you so much. Gosh, I love that you said AI. I'm like, Bridget, are you already I know she is. She literally, I
We
saw
could have
her
a
face light up.
conversation about that. Yep.
Like, where's my
Yeah, we'll
chatbot? Where's my widget? Um, I love it. Thank you so much, Isaac, for being here. And thank you to everyone for listening to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast.